In this CineGuru MAX tutorial, we're going to take a look at how you can use camera shake to add some realism to your shots. So here's a little scene I set up in about 3 minutes where we've got a camera that's triggered by a cine trigger zone, and when it's triggered it just pushes into this end point, kind of through this archway. So at the moment this is a very smooth shot. It just kind of pushes in through the archway, very smooth. But what we want to do is make it look like it's a handheld shot. And like it's actually like a character's point of view. So to do that, we're going to use a camera shake trigger, which is one of the elements included with CineGuru MAX. So if we go into our CineGuru MAX folder, we can add a camera shake trigger, and we'll connect that up to our camera marker. So the camera shake trigger, if we go into its behavior, has a number of different editable parameters. Looks a little bit overwhelming at first, but it breaks down quite simply, and we're gonna kind of go through it one by one. So the first thing we can set is the mode. So there are 2 different modes you can set your camera shake trigger to. Add is camera shake that's sort of added in the middle of a shot, and set is a sort of a set amount of camera shake that happens for the entire duration of a shot. So for this shot we want to make it look like it's handheld. So the whole shot will be handheld, so we'll set it to set. The delay is a little delay before the camera shake comes in. Obviously we want our camera shake to last the whole 7 seconds of the shot, so we're going to type 0 as our delay. Then we've got these 2 values here, trauma and period. So trauma, think of that as sort of the severity of the shaking. So it's between 0 and 100. So 100 is a lot of shaking, very violent, and 0 is no shaking at all. So for a handheld look, we might be looking at a low value like maybe 25. So it's a little bit of shaking, but it's not too much. And also we can set the speed of the shaking by changing the period value. So 50 is sort of, I guess the best way to describe this is that small values are very fast shaking and large values are very slow. So if I were to set this to quite a high value like 500, 400, somewhere around there, this would give us quite a slow shaking. And then there's also a fade parameter which doesn't do anything when the camera shake trigger is set to set. So what we've done here is we've basically said, yep, the camera shake is going to last the whole duration of the shot. It's going to have a little bit of shaking, but it's going to be quite a slow shake. And that is going to give us a sort of a handheld look to the shot. So the shaking isn't too violent. We could probably increase the period a little bit to make it a bit slower. We could also decrease the trauma a little bit so that it's not quite as jerky. And now it's a very subtle effect. Barely moving the camera at all, but it is doing something. So that's quite a cool effect. But the other way you can use camera shake triggers is to add camera shake in the middle of a shot. So let's say that this barrel is going to explode, and what we want to do is pull away from the barrel. So we're going to swap the positions of our camera marker and our end point. So now the shot kind of starts here and then pulls back. And what we want to do is have it as a nice smooth shot to begin with, but then as the barrel explodes, we want to add some camera shake. So there's a few things we're going to have to add to make this work. So firstly, let's just check. Our cameras are nice and low to the floor, so we're going to kind of, the barrel's going to be in the center of frame, all good. Just to make things a bit easier, I'm going to move our camera shake trigger over to our camera marker. So what we want to say is that the mode of the camera shake trigger is set to add. So that means it will add it in the middle of the shot. Now our shot is 7 seconds long, so what if we were to explode the barrel after 3 seconds? So let's delay the camera shake from starting until 3 seconds into the shot. Now let's assume it's a really big explosion, so we're going to put the trauma right up to 100, so very violent shaking. And then the period is kind of, as we said, how quickly that shake happens. And I want it to be quite quick. I want it to be quite violent. So it's more of shudder rather than a slow sort of, waving from side to side. So let's set that nice and low down to 50 milliseconds. We'll even type that in. When the camera shake trigger is set to add, the fade parameter, this actually does something now. It basically defines how much of the trauma should be subtracted per frame. So if you were to set this to a really low value, the tail off of the shaking would happen very gradually. Whereas if you were to set it to a high number, you're taking away 10 trauma every frame. And bearing in mind you're probably running at 60 frames a second, that's going to kind of subside very, very quickly. So I'm going to set it to a kind of a medium value, really, of sort of like 3. Let's actually type that in so it's easier. So right now our camera shake trigger will mean that our camera starts shaking 3 seconds into the shot. So quite a violent shake to begin with, but it subsides quite quickly. So if we wanted to have a kind of a slower subsiding, we could decrease that fade value, and now it will take longer to stop shaking. So pretty cool. And just to complete the effect, we're going to add in a generic trigger, and this is what's actually going to control the barrel itself exploding. And we're going to connect the camera marker up to our trigger and connect our trigger up to our barrel. And as we said, we want a 3-second delay before the barrel explodes. So we'll type in 3 into our delay, and we just need to change the script associated with the barrel. So we're going to change it to activate to destroy. So this means when activated, this barrel will explode. So if we go back into test game, we can see the finished shot. So possibly the camera shake goes on a little bit too long. The fade out is a bit too gradual, so I might want to increase that back up to 3. But you can see how you can use camera shake to do all sorts of interesting effects. You could do kind of earthquake effects, and as I said, the handheld camera shake is obviously really useful, and it really just adds a lot of realism to your shots, and gets away from everything looking buttery smooth all the time, which can sometimes look a little bit fake and a little bit artificial. So yeah, really hope you enjoy the camera shake trigger as much as I do, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Cheers.